My name is Todd Hager. I'm the industry chair of the Emerging Technology Community of Interest, and I'm joined by my fellow co-chair, Neil Chaudhry, and we are very proud to be working with the acquisition community of interest to put on this joint event. It's our second Shark Tank competition. We had one many moons ago with blockchain at NASA, and this one virtual. We're thrilled to be able to put this on for all of you again today. So let's jump in and give you a sense of what we're going to be doing today. First of all, what we want to do is make sure that we introduce all the folks that are going to be involved. We've got an esteemed group of judges here that we want you to get to meet, go through those pitches, and then announce some winners. You're going to actually hear the winners today as before the close of this entire event. So, as I mentioned before, Neil and I lead the Emerging Technology Community of Interest, and we've been working together for a bit now, and we do all of our work, as many of you know, through the working groups. We have a monthly meeting that is the third Tuesday of the month at 10 a.m. For the entire Emerging Technology Community of Interest. But we, as I mentioned, do all of that work in those working groups where they meet oftentimes weekly: blockchain, AI, intelligent automation, DevOps, and IoT, with a lot of great material available for folks out there too, playbooks and primers and things to help folks understand how this technology is used in government and how best to take advantage of that technology within your own agencies. So we are made up of a great leadership team, and we've got a couple of open positions, and we can talk about those offline, but we encourage you to come join us. And we're thrilled that you're here today to be able to see one of the things that we put on together as a joint COI offering. So without further ado, I want to introduce the chairs of the event. We have two chairs. First, Mike Rice, co-founder and chief operating officer of Cornerstone IT. He's got 40 years experience providing IT and program leadership to government, including the support of 3 presidential transition teams. Mike is also an author of In Pursuit of Business Development Lifecycle. He has his fingerprints on all the working groups that I just mentioned within the Emerging Tech Community of Interest, and he's a good friend. I want to also introduce Jaime Garcia. He's an acquisition manager for the Internal Revenue Service, overseeing the procurement innovation branch with more than 20 years in government and industry. He's the government chair of the ACT-IAC Acquisition Community of Interest and an honorary leader in the Emerging Technology Community of Interest. He's a veteran of the US Navy, and he's also an author and a good friend. So welcome, guys, and take it away.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd, and thank you everyone for joining us this morning. Really excited about this great event. So without further ado, I'd like to briefly introduce our very esteemed panel of judges, our sharks. This morning, we do have Polly Hall. Polly serves as the executive director of the Department of Homeland Security Procurement Innovation Lab within the Office of Chief Procurement Officer. She also serves as DHS's Acquisition Innovation Advocate. Polly is very instrumental in shaping the strategic direction and collaboration framework of the PIL, which is a virtual lab which provides a safe space to experiment with innovative techniques across the Department of Homeland Security to help modernize and transform the procurement function at DHS. We also have Florence Cazalet, who's currently the Director of Procurement within the United States Digital Service. She and her team work to modernize and streamline the acquisition process to bring amazing digital services to the American public. Prior to her time with USDS, Florence served as the head of acquisitions for the Defense Digital Service. We also have Janelle Billingsley. Janelle is the technical lead at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Consolidated Acquisition Systems. Janelle remains a visionary leader in promoting enterprise acquisition capability solutions. She is a PhD, an author, and an excellent CEO, and of course, a results-driven expert. Also on our panel, we have Enrique Magnan, who is the awards management lead with the All of Us research program at the National Institute of Health, NIH. He oversees the portfolio of other transactions supporting the program's efforts to advance individualized healthcare by enrolling over 1 million participants that reflect the diverse populations of the US and developing tools to help researchers analyze participant data. Before joining all of us last spring, he serves as the Chief Acquisition Advisor and Acting Director of Contracts for the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, BARDA. Also on our panel this morning is Mr. William Randolph. Will is, I'm going to do a little bit more for Will simply because he's the founder of Think Acquisition. And if you're not following him on LinkedIn, you are certainly missing out. He's got a tremendous series called Will's Whiteboard, which is a wonderful educational experience for both government and industry. And he also is starting a new podcast with Soraya Correa, who of course was the Chief Procurement Officer at the Department of Homeland Security. He's a former SES at DHS, so we're very happy to have him on our panel this morning. And last but not least is Harrison Smith, who is the co-director of the Internal Revenue Service Enterprise Digitalization and Case Management Office. In this role, he spearheads IRS efforts to modernize systems, simplify business processes, and empower taxpayers and IRS employees to rapidly resolve issues in simplified digital environments. And prior to this role, Harrison was the the Deputy Chief Procurement Officer at the Internal Revenue Service under the Office of Chief Procurement Officer. And that is our esteemed panel. Very happy to have them this morning. Thank you for joining, and back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Jaime. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about who's going to be represented today as our contestants. And I'll talk a little bit about the evaluation process afterwards and how we got there from here. First, we'll be pitching today will be civic actions. They're going to be presenting their rapid ATO process and solution. Next, and this is interesting, we open this up for not just industry, but agency submissions and academia submissions. So we actually solicited all three areas for presentation. And here we got an IRS and Summit2Sea. They're going to give their intelligent automation for automated contract mods. Oracle will be representing themselves here, looking at blockchain, using AI and blockchain in government acquisition solutions for FedRAMP certified government cloud. OTG Group and Core CLM will be presenting the accelerated federal acquisition using AI and machine learning. And then finally, Summit2Sea will be doing a waste abuse fraud reporting system. Next slide, please. All right. So I said I was going to tell you a little bit about how this process got put together. What we did was we had a kind of a funnel effect where we had 18 submissions total. And of those 18 submissions, we actually broke them up into, we took out names, names were changed to protect the innocent, if you remember that show. The idea is names were reviewed, and we had a panelist go through and look at groups, okay, and score them, okay. Those were brought down to create the top 10. That top 10 was given to a separate group, and the separate group scored using the same scoring criteria to get it down to the top 5, and those top 5 are being represented here today. We were looking at 7 areas. Impact, that's the greatest impact to acquisition workforce. Feasibility, simplicity. We looked at cost effectiveness, how data was used, that was important also. The scalability of the solution so that it can go elsewhere, and how much security was taken in consideration, because we live in that world now. So you're going to see this is the exact same criteria that the judges are going to be using today. So I just want everybody to know that this is how the process worked to get down to the top 5. A little bit of the schedule today, just got to give you a heads up and then we'll get started. We will have 5 pitches, as we said, okay? There'll be 15 minutes apiece. There'll be 10 minutes for presentation. This is orals 101. 10 minutes for presentation and 5 minutes for the judges to just for clarification questions. If they hear something that's interesting, they want a little bit more clarification, they will ask those questions. There'll be 5 minutes that are put together for that. I've got a question here. Folks, you have the ability to use your own slides to present. Okay, so everybody's got the ability to present. So I just want to make sure that the contestants understand that. We will get 2 presentations in, and we're going to take a 15-minute break, okay? Once we take that 15-minute break, we'll come back and presentation 3, 4, and 5 will be given. And then we're going to put the judges in their private little room. We're going to do a breakout for a judges huddle for 20 minutes, okay? Now, during that 20 minutes, you will get a poll because all the audience is going to be able to vote for who they thought was, we kind of call it the Oh Wow Award, okay? So the judges are going to be looking at it from a certain perspective, and that's the impact to the acquisition world. And then we as audience get a chance to vote also. So there'll be two announcements. While the judges are in their huddle and we're actually get done with our poll, what we will do is we will go through the normal, this is the emerging technology COI meeting. So we're going to go through the normal business. We'll bring the judges back, and then we'll make our announcements of who won. One will be, you see the poll from the audience, and then from the judges. Then we're going to do something which is really kind of, I think this is exciting. This is an opportunity for you. We're going to have an Ask the Panelists time, okay, about 25 minutes, where we'll put the panelists up. The judges are sharks, okay, and you'll be putting questions in the chat. Jaime and myself will be fielding those questions, and I'll be presenting them to the panelists. And this is an opportunity for you to kind of hear. You know, you want to talk to the acquisition, the 1102 workforce, especially the leadership team. I mean, we've got some strong leaders in this particular panel. This is your opportunity to be educated. So, so ask away, ask good questions, and I'm sure you're going to get some great answers. With that, I think we're done. Are we ready to begin, guys? All right, we're ready to begin. So what we're going to do is you will hear, I'm going to give you 10 minutes. And I'm using some real technology here for timing now, okay? You're going to hear this. Your 10 minutes are up, okay? And then we'll move into Q&A. And what I will do is I will try to reset that so it doesn't keep running. And then once we get done with the Q&A, immediately it'll shut down. The next person will start presentation. Next we'll start presenting, okay? We good? Awesome. This is exciting. I'm looking forward to it. All right, first up.
Here we go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's start the timer.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Arielle Lebrecq. I am the Digital Services Manager for Civic Actions. I am joined today by my colleague, Fen LeBaume, who is our Chief Information Security Officer. And then some of you may also know our Senior Capture Manager, Keith Kawasaki, who is also here. I first wanted to talk a little bit about who we are and what we do. We are a registered small business founded in 2004. We have numerous former US digital service leaders distributed amongst our team. We're a founding member of the Digital Services Coalition. We are founders for both Technologists for the Public Good. We're founders of Distributed Gov, and we are chief maintainers of DCAN. So that's a little bit about us. So I first want to talk about the current state of ATO. Today we'll be talking about rapid ATO, but we're going to get to what that actually is in a moment. So every federal information system must go through NIST risk management framework before it can be used to process federal information. This process culminates in assigned authority to operate being issued. We have found that the current FSMA ATO process is slow to incorporate changes. These can be changes brought on by factors including system or technology changes and upgrades, as well as the constantly evolving threat landscape. It's also a closed process. There's no sharing of information across agencies or even sometimes within agencies, and this causes blockers and delays during the acquisition process. Let's talk a little bit more about the problem. In its current form, as the ATO documentation is being written, technology and risks are changing and evolving in real time. Definitions, processes, and formats change by contract, vendor, division, and agency. And often sometimes, as I mentioned too, within agencies. ATOs in their current form can result in over almost 400 plus pages of non-machine readable documentation. Civic Actions is currently working hand in hand with Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, Offices of Information Technology, so OIT, to develop the Rapid ATO. As I state here, Rapid ATO is currently a pilot program that we are looking to expand and to scale. So there are three main phases, all built with US Web Design System and human-centered design in mind. Phase 1 uses natural language processing to discover reusable components and to generate a library. Phase 2 integrates IA to select components relevant to a system. And then phase 3 uses robotic processing automation to refactor system security plans using quality component narratives. This is currently a pilot program with the goal of becoming a more widely implemented and used mechanism to streamline acquisition. And I'll get to that more in a moment. Let's talk about the benefit. What can Rapid ATO offer us? Rapid ATO prioritizes time and cost at its core. And this is throughout the acquisition lifecycle, start to finish. Our Rapid ATO projects a cost reduction of more than 75% over the total lifecycle. One of the main goals of Rapid ATO is to guide end users who do not possess in-depth knowledge of security and compliance. We're developing the Rapid ATO product to be intuitive and easy to use for all stakeholders, regardless of their level of knowledge and comfortability. And as an open source solution, it's easily accessible, flexible, scalable, and built for sustainable ongoing authorization. We find that in our work with CMS currently, that they are ahead of the curve with our Rapid ATO pilot. Across agencies, pilots are everywhere, but there's little reusability that's currently open source. We find that Rapid ATO is a tide that will raise all boats, leveling the same quality of risk mitigation across different government agencies. So now let's talk about acquisition. We want to emphasize here the time to achieve security compliance. Shifting the security compliance process left will enable mitigation of vulnerabilities and misconfigurations early on in the development pipeline. This reduces human error and human burden. Employing RPA, IA, and NLP into the system security plan creation will improve efficiencies during the acquisition process. Again, this goes back to increasing speed and lowering costs without sacrificing security. Let's talk now about our strategy, which includes a federal compliance library. The federal compliance library is made up of reusable components, and I'm going to talk a little bit about these components. As component creation and discovery, so the state of natural language processing within the library itself matures, the library will grow. In turn, as the component library grows, an array of government partners and agencies will benefit. Selecting components can be completed by inventory analysis. This is using RPA. Verifying components can be done by inventory and technology subject matter experts. Composing components into a system security plan will be automated using intelligent automation. And then finally, the system security plan control verification and assessment can be largely automated with RPA. So this is self-sustaining. What's also important to note too is that the library is designed to be distributed and can be expanded across the government and even into the private sector. This is a resource that will support government-wide compliance efforts by offering reusable components and trusted pre-existing sets of various technology stacks being used across multiple agencies concurrently. Let's talk about what the end state looks like. So this suite integrates tools developed by the NIST OSCAL team and collaborators with our own tools, all of which are available from GitHub. The federal compliance library upon which they operate will also be maintained in GitHub. An important part here is the clarity of documentation, which contributes to the ease and navigability. So I want to emphasize human-centered design and the overall user experience here. While this is still under development, these tools and components will be able to be pulled into many other applications. Let's look at finally values to the acquisition lifecycle. For contract planning, best practices are unified and streamlined under Rapid ATO. For the solicitation, it guarantees a standardized level of performance that is also applicable to the QASP or the Quality Assurance Surveillance Plan. And it sustains knowledge through reusability throughout a transition period or during a transition plan when a new contractor is coming on. During the evaluation phase, agencies and contractors can demonstrate an ability to speed up the process regarding both time and money without sacrificing security. This also means, related, that increasing security will be looked on more favorably during the acquisition process. Rapid ATO is cost-effective, it's faster, it's automatically verified, and it sustains its own longevity through automated updates for ongoing authorization. Finally, let's look at the playbooks that we used. We consulted the Intelligent Automation Playbook, Volume 1. So we talked a little bit about robotic process automation. And we also consulted the Intelligent Automation Primer. That wraps up with my commentary, and I now would like to open the floor to our panelists, and we're looking forward to your questions.
You still have 50 seconds left. That was excellent.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
Does anyone have a song?
Panelists, do you have any questions?
Sure. Hi, this is Florence. Thank you so much, Ariel, for that presentation. I think many of us are very aware of the problems that exist across the government with the ATO process. My question is around what do you all consider the lift on the acquisition community in order to incorporate this type of technology and solution?
So I thank you for your question. So I think at the moment, because this is currently, as I mentioned, a pilot for us, and it is something because, you know, we as a company, we opt for open source, for free and open source software to make things accessible, to make things scalable. So our goal is obviously always scalability and ease of use. The pilot phase, in the pilot phase currently, we are discovering the level of effort for the acquisition side. But our goal is ultimately to have, and this is where I mentioned too, human-centered design and the overall UX here is the ease of use, the navigability, and that rapid ATO is measurable and it's standardized, right? So we're leveling the playing field for folks in the acquisition side. And we want to make sure that in running this pilot program and looking at the scalability, that it's going to be equitable for all people involved for the acquisition side. I know that that's not so much of an answer of here's the exact amount in terms of level of effort, but this is a process of iteration, of continuous improvement. And when it comes to security and planning, that we can consistently be providing that higher level of quality.
If I may just jump in just for a moment on that, and also apologies, they're tearing up the street outside, so there may be some noises. As Mike mentioned, security is the world we live in today, and every system that you are working on acquisition is going to have security issues involved with it. One of the things during your acquisition process that I would think would be valuable to look at is the agency, excuse me, is the agency and or the contractors building the system using a system like Rapid ATO, which will speed the process to production.
So this is Harrison. I'm having a slightly more basic question. There's a lot of good content and good information, and sort of in the as I talk about internally with our team, what's the dummy Harrison version, right? What's the 30-second distillation if you're trying to talk to somebody down the street about what the activity, what the proposal is, and then also a follow-up on. It sounds like you're trying to get machine readable data out of the activity through OCR and the like, I think, as opposed to ingesting machine readable data at the go. Trying to figure out if I'm misconstruing the proposal. Thanks.
That's the second one first. That is slightly misconstrued. We're looking at refactoring what's currently in Word docs into machine readable code. It's not using OCR, it's using NLP to look for patterns in languages, patterns in SSPs that represent components. Components are really the big win here, and components are a major part of the federal compliance library. Right now, well, first of all, what is a component? NIST defines a component as, I'm reading here, a reusable grouping of control implementation statements that deal with the specific security requirements of a defined technology, function, or process. For example, if your system is going to use a firewall, that has to have, there'll be controls for that firewall that involve the security, the configuration, the access control, the logging, the requirements, etc. Every single time somebody builds a system with a firewall, even if it's the same firewall, they have to redo that process, and they come up with that over and over again. There's wide quality as to how well they do it, and how well it's verified and assessed. So what we're building with components is a library where people can where people can generate a good quality component for brand X firewall and just pull that off the shelf, and they have 90% of what they need right off the bat.
I need to interrupt. That's the end of the question and answer time. The timer went off. I want to thank Civic Actions for an incredible presentation. Thank you very much. You may have the opportunity to ask some of these questions later during the panelist time, but we need to move on. Next up, IRS, intelligent automation for automating contract modifications. You are next up, please.
Hey, good morning. I'm David Gill, procurement data scientist at the Internal Revenue Service. And I'm going to be presenting with my colleague, Jessica Mosley at Summit2Sea Consulting. And what we want to share with you is our use of robotic process automation, or bots, to help automate modifications to government contracts. And this really is a labor-intensive task. Requires a lot of man hours for the government's 1102 personnel. That's the contracting officers. And one of the drivers for the number of modifications an agency has to do is continuing resolutions. If there's 3 continuing resolutions over the course of 3 months, each time, like in that picture, you're going to be the harried contracting officer trying to churn out those funding modifications, adding 11.2% or whatever it is of the annual funding to the contract. And you got to get it out fast because the contractors need the money. And the mechanics of doing these modifications, I mean, yes, we have contract writing systems at agencies, but there are automation gaps. There are things these systems do not do. So RPA can come in and fill some of those automation gaps and take calculations that would otherwise be manual, like this month's continuing resolution is 11.2% of a year or something like that, and populate that across a whole portfolio of contracts. The second item on this slide, the mass modifications, there's a lot of policy-driven mandates that can apply to all contracts across the agency. So currently we're implementing the COVID safety executive order, and that requires adding language to nearly every single contract at an agency. So given the volume and the repetitive nature of the task, this is an area where automation can really help.
Absolutely. Thanks, David. And good morning, everyone. I am honored our submission was selected, and I'm happy to be here. My name is Jessica Mosley, and I work with David Gill at the IRS to develop these automations. So continuing resolutions, as David said, and new regulations really exacerbate an overworked workforce. So with upcoming retirements and the constant concern of budget cuts, the administrative burden is massive. But what if it didn't have to be so hard? RPA can automate incrementally funded mods, streamlining those post-award activities. All you need is a license for a COPS product, and you can get started right away. We use UiPath, which was created back in 2005 and implemented by numerous government agencies already to automate that repetitive work. And that's exactly what we want to do to remove this burden from our contracting officers. So with more regulations to follow and more work piled on, we are asked to do more with less. And RPA can step in to handle those repetitive rule-based tasks, allowing those contracting officers to focus on high-value work. So to help COs process these incremental mods of the IRS, we worked with the OBSA team to create the attended automation. So let's see this in action. This video is about 20 seconds long and just a snippet of what we built for the IRS to process incremental funding modifications. And they call these personal services or PSC mods. So the bot deftly replaces tables with new calculations and modifies predefined data elements, such as deobligated funds, previous obligations, hours processed, and the hourly rate. As you saw, the automation is not overly complex. It's simply performing data manipulation. In other words, taking data from Word and Excel and transcribing it to create a new Word document. The automation runs locally, and data is retrieved and stored from a shared folder containing Excel and Word documents. No PII data or credentials are used in this iteration, and no changes are necessary to any of your underlying systems in order to take advantage. There we go. So the team came to us and asked if we could automate their incrementally funded modifications. And there were hundreds to process, about 800 in fact. And each modification took contracting officers 30 minutes. So it's repetitive, time consuming, and error prone. COs are transcribing data from 3 documents into a 4th document. And do you remember the image from slide 2? The worker who was just so stressed looking at their calculator and their screen. Well, contracting officers are moving between screens and tabs and applications, copying and pasting and adding and subtracting. It's exhausting. And using RPA, we can create a new modification using data manipulation. Accurate calculations are made in Excel and tables are easily updated in the template. Not only does it decrease administrative burden, but people like getting paid. Automating contract modifications gets funding to the vendors quickly, and that's something industry and government both want. As we see continuing resolutions persist and policies that are enacted in weeks, RPA is the quick and easy way to tackle other use cases, and there are plenty of repetitive and rule-based processes to go around. COs are being asked to do more with less, and reducing the administrative burden to process incremental funding and exercise option modifications must decrease. In addition to incrementally funded mods, RPA bots can do things like update clause language in contracts and process contract closeouts. And COs are given the ability to do the work we need them to do and not the administrative tedious work bots can relieve them of. The automation I built at the IRS is repeatable and extendable. What do I mean by that? Repeatable because workflows can be reused across robots and processes, and extendable because the automation built at the IRS can easily be modified to search for different documents or templates, variables, or create a new report. The current iteration is an attended automation right now, but Summit2Sea can also transition the bot to unattended, removing human interaction altogether. Creating a PSC modification used to take 30 minutes, and RPA can reduce that time to under 3 minutes. The potential reduction of administrative burden to contracting officers would be a game changer. The process allowed the IRS to standardize and capture consistent information in new modifications. And for those agencies concerned with PAL, this automation decreases PAL because it gets the contract funding to the vendors quicker and vendors are happier when they get paid on time. And it's secure. Microsoft Office is well established, and UiPath has been implemented by numerous government agencies already. UiPath encrypts customer data in transit and at rest using TLS or transport layer security. And basically, it's a cryptographic protocol designed to provide those communications securely over a computer network. Most importantly, COs can focus on high value work. Scalability is a key selling point of RPA. A robotic workforce can be as large or as small as the agency needs it to be, and additional robots can be developed quickly for either no or minimal cost. Workflows can be reused across multiple robots and processes, and it's also important to consider the roadmap for scaling automations. We use an iterative, agile approach to go from pitch to prototype to production. We created a robot factory that identifies, curates, builds, tests, train, deploy, and support RPA automations. So that provides a means to go from automation ideas to reality and focuses on continued development. And finally, automating contract modifications with RPA impacts the lives of COs, freeing them from a massive administrative burden. COs are given freedom to do meaningful high-value work. Implemented with a COTS product, it's using your data from commonly used applications like Excel and Word, cost-effective through licensing, scalable, and secure. RPA can be used to streamline activities throughout the acquisition lifecycle. In our case, it was for post-award activities, but the use cases don't stop there. Using repeatable workflows makes it possible to deploy in other agencies quickly. And after seeing incrementally funded mod activities reduced 90%, it's a game changer. Are there any questions?
Very good. 20 seconds left. You guys are rocking. Okay, open to the panel.
Hello, this is William. I just have one question. What other use cases outside of incremental funding modifications have you considered? I know that's a significant piece of activity in a unique use case around CRs, but what other use cases have they been at least considered?
Absolutely. So RPA has been used to check federal contracts and vendors for exclusions and the relationship for the federal government. It's been used to help with the contract closeout administration process, modifying documents with appropriate contact information and contract information, and sent to key stakeholders such as vendors and the core. And we have also used RPA to reduce the fraud and abuse that my colleague Miguel is actually going to talk about in a couple presentations from now.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
This is Polly. Great presentation. Thank you both. The question I had was just to ask a little bit about how the data for the automation is prepared. You had mentioned Excel sheets and Word documents. Is that CO created Excel sheets, etc., or is that pulled directly from systems in preparation for the automation?
Great question, Polly. So the contracting officers receive the emailed budget analysis sheets, and then they create a modification document on their own. So what they're doing is they're taking those emailed spreadsheets from those overseas contractors and then attaching their old modification document and putting it into a shared folder so the bot can grab those documents and capture that data.
Yeah, but for other modification use cases, we would pull from systems. It just depends on what type of modification we're doing.
Hi, I have a question. This is to I guess William's question. I definitely see a lot of use cases for this, and we do have technical solutions that allow for mass modification. This is a very relevant thing as we look at doing the mass changes to accommodate for the COVID-19 mass changes. So my question to you is, how like, would we be able to go in and just add it on our own? I.e. like the systems folks to add, like do a mass change, or does the requirement have to come from somewhere else? So I guess this kind of gets to the data.
So to clarify, are you asking how they would use UiPath to create the RPA automation?
Yeah, so for example, like we have some FAR clauses that are hopefully coming pretty quickly that have to be implemented. So we're having a lot of issues on the system side with respect to how those are actually processed, right? So we need to change like contracts all the way across the board. So how, like, could we just go in and, you know, say, okay, this is the new FAR language that we want to be included, and then we implement that across the entire, for example, like HHS? Or is it something, would individual folks have to do it?
You absolutely can do it across all of HHS. So as long as it knows which systems or applications it needs to access and what language needs to be updated. RPA is rule-based and data-driven, so it can absolutely handle it either on a pilot program with a few individuals or across the board.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. I wanted to ask in terms of the level of effort for the prep process. I know an earlier question was asked in terms of with the Excel documentation, where that originated from and how it was pulled. And the answer, I believe, was that the CO's shop would prepare that documentation and create shared folders. So we know that we're saying it streamlines and goes from 30 minutes to 3 minutes on the processing speed. What is the estimated time that would take a procurement shop to prepare all the data so that this tool could be utilized effectively?
At this stage, it's about 5 minutes because those emails come in that the personal service contractors send to the contracting officers, and then they just place those folders into a predefined shared folder. So it's a matter of minutes. The 30 minutes of processing time was taking those Excel documents, switching between the two, looking at the past modification document, modifying the tables that we saw in the video, and then placing all of that new data into an entirely new modification document.
Our next group is from Oracle. I did a roll call earlier. Do we have representation for blockchain and AI/ML enabled government acquisition solutions and FedRAMP certified government cloud? That's a mouthful.
Yep,
yes.
We have several people here for that.
Awesome. Okay, so tee up your presentation, and when you begin speaking, I will turn on the clock. All right.
Okay, sounds good. All right, I'd like to thank everyone for inviting us to give this presentation today. My name's Tom Plunkett, and I'm joined today by Serge. Serge, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Serge Leontiev.
So we're here to talk about Oracle blockchain and artificial intelligence machine learning enabled government acquisition solution in a FedRAMP certified government cloud. That's quite a mouthful, as you mentioned. We're from Oracle. Our mission is to help people see data in new ways, discover insights, unlock endless possibilities. Oracle's very first customer was the federal government, and Oracle has continued to work closely with the federal government for the last 40 years. However, we're not selling the same products we sold 40 years ago. We've obviously evolved over the last 40 years, just as the problems and mission that the federal government has evolved over the last 40 years. Here's a look at a modern acquisition solutions platform, leveraging cloud and on-premise capabilities. And importantly, to our suggestion, we're including blockchain and machine learning in this platform. So for example, we've got back-end applications, we've got your traditional database for storing information, although obviously today's databases are far more capable than the ones in the past because they're leveraging machine learning inside them, as well as external machine learning and anomaly detection components, and a blockchain component for security and transparent sharing of information. As well as all the usual integration capabilities. And all of that is a platform behind the user-facing procurement lifecycle applications. So, and of course, you know, we're heading into this area where we've got new capabilities for developing code rapidly, either, you know, sometimes referred to as low code or no code development, which Serge is going to talk about in a little bit, but really makes it easy to build an application rapidly. I'll give an example a little later, but we took a blockchain enabled system into production in HHS in under 4 months. And so you can really build an enterprise class system doing important missions for the federal government really quickly using modern technology. So here's a look at some of the business challenges that blockchain can help you solve. And many of these are applicable to current procurement systems that the federal government agencies are running. You know, first of all, there's a lot of siloed data systems in the federal government and in business in general. There's a lot of siloed business systems out there. And where people say they have a single source of truth, but really they have a source of truth for their siloed data system, which is in conflict with the source of truth that the other systems believe in. And so that's a problem of trying to reconcile what is the actual truth. And so there's that's a big problem for enterprises today, especially government agencies. There's also a risk of, you know, in our current systems, you hear about human errors, fraud all the time. You know, it makes it very difficult to have audit trails and traceability and have transparent visibility. And blockchain is a great solution for solving those problems, because you get this transparent ledger that everyone can have a view on. So now you have a true single source of truth with blockchain. It's a source of truth that everyone will accept. Whereas in traditional legacy systems, you just have their truth. Furthermore, this is highly secure. There's better security with blockchain than we've ever had before in traditional IT security. And so we'll talk about that as well as traceability. So how does blockchain help add some unique value to procurement stuff? Well, we say that blockchain gives you immutability or tamper evident data. If a hacker attempts to make a change to a blockchain system, it'll be immediately obvious that a hacker has attempted that. Whereas if a hacker attempts to make a change to a siloed system, it may be weeks or months before you realize that there's been a hack. Everything is secured by digital signatures. It enhances trust in your source of truth, and gives you this transparent access to information, as well as the fact that you can control confidentiality and privacy and so forth. So some of the main reasons why government agencies and other enterprises are looking at blockchain includes confidentiality, integrity of identity and data information, and this immutability and tamper-proofing idea that I mentioned before, that you can see any attempt to modify the data, whether it was from a hacker or from an inadvertent error. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a FedRAMP cloud. So, you know, we're using Oracle Cloud, so it's FedRAMPed and certified. You get all the benefits of all the various certifications that Oracle Cloud has gone through. So let's talk a little bit about Oracle Blockchain Platform before we dive into how we're using it for procurement. Basically, the idea is Oracle Blockchain Platform is based on an open source project called Hyperledger Fabric. And we've taken the approach of increasing that open source project to make it more suitable for enterprises like the federal government. So we've reduced the complexity of using Hyperledger Fabric and integrating it with other business systems to get access to all the information you need, and to make it easy to rapidly integrate all sorts of different applications into your blockchain environment. So Serge, you want to talk about how we can do this from a development perspective?
Absolutely, yes. And creating a smart contract shouldn't be hard. We're trying to make it as easy as possible and offer like a very easy entry point for the developers. Before that, if you're kind of dealing with actual Hyperledger Fabric, you have to write a lot of code for your smart contract. We're trying to kind of steer away from that. And we're offering a simple way to create a specification file that you can upload into the Visual Code Builder extension for the blockchain builder. And based on the specification, Visual Code extension will generate for you a smart contract project and all codes. What you have to do is just simply fill out your custom methods and implementations. And then you can actually, without kind of deploying it to the remote server, you can test it locally. So we're offering integration with the Docker containers where you can provision a local version of Hyperledger Fabric. And you can validate your contract, you can test it, you can make sure that everything is working as it's supposed to. And then you can package and deploy your smart contract directly to the Oracle blockchain platform. And the tool itself is very intuitive. And if your developers are familiar with Visual Builder Code, it's kind of very easy to use platform itself. And we're adding a lot of UI elements. For example, on the right side, we're exposing all those methods, all those APIs that's available in smart contracts, so developers can easily test the capabilities of the smart contract and make sure that everything is working as supposed to. Back to you, Tom.
All right, thanks, Serge. So just to give you an example of another place we were rapidly able to take a blockchain project into production, we recently did a COVID-19 project for HHS. We demoed the initial idea to HHS last September, about a year ago, and within 4 months, by January, we were in production. This system has been in production with conditional ATO. We're working on the full ATO, and we're in the process. We've processed over 4 million COVID-19 test results, with all this information being secured by the blockchain, shared between various labs and government agencies. And we've actually done some other presentations on this project for ACT-IAC in the past, so I'm not going to repeat this. But if anyone's interested in finding out more about this, feel free to reach out to us. So we mentioned earlier, we're using both blockchain and AI/ML. Oracle has a long history of working with artificial intelligence, machine learning. In particular, Oracle worked with the U.S. Department of Energy in the 1990s to create one of the first really significant machine learning innovations, referred to as MSET, or multivariate state estimation technique. It's currently in use at all of the nuclear facilities in the U.S., primarily to prevent the possibility of a Chernobyl or third 3 Mile Island from occurring again. It's basically machine learning for identifying when things are going wrong. Works great for identifying anomalies in systems. It can also be used in procurement for identifying anomalies, for example, that are a result of fraud or an incorrect application of the accounting rules. If you think about how the normal fraud detection works in accounting, normally what they look for is for a flag. Like, let's say this particular line item, if it goes over $100,000, you flag it, some dollar amount that will trigger a flag. Well, what we do with machine learning is very different. We look at the pattern of behavior, we train the model, and then if we see things going wrong, even though they don't pass a red flag like the $100,000 I mentioned, but if we see consistently people going right up to that flag, like 98,000 all the time, that might be a pattern of bad behavior. And so we're using advanced machine learning to help identify where you should be doing auditing and looking for fraud in procurement. Here's an example of how it does that. It's essentially another cloud service. Everything we're talking about can be done in the cloud as services that you configure together. So, and it's referred to as anomaly detection. And it's heavily patented. So there's a lot of potential benefits for this blockchain and AI/ML acquisition solution. Blockchain gives you the security capabilities, the immutability, tamper-proof, integrity of data.
Time's up, guys. Sorry.
Okay. So that was it. Thank you very much. We use some of the ACT-IAC, and you can learn more about it. We really appreciate being invited.
Okay, we're opening up for judges to ask questions. A reminder, judges only, not from the audience at this time. So judges, if you got questions for our presenters, please open up.
Yes, let me just jump in quickly. Hi, Tom. Hi, Serge. Thanks so much for that presentation. Can you explain the process if most acquisition offices have contract writing system. And so how you envision incorporating this this solution with that already pre-existing contract writing system in order to make the lives and the processes more efficient.
Right. So we're really looking at this as sort of being a back-end system, kind of like, in a way, people think about the database as being the back end, but we're expanding the back end of the platform to have your blockchain on the back end. So here is your traditional procurement lifecycle application that the contracting officer works with. But the blockchain system is in the back, and it's ensuring that not only is your procurement system you're working with getting access to information, but that system is being kept in sync with all of the other systems that it has to interoperate with. So instead of having this sort of pipeline idea where you get some data and then you pass it on to the next person in line in the procurement and they get the data and then they work on it and they're the owner, instead everybody has access to the latest data. But it's all being handled on the back end. It won't change the front end that the procurement people are working with.
Yeah, so we are exposing set of services, APIs that basically can be consumed by any application, and that will help to ensure kind of execution of the smart contract.
Right, and so my follow-up question to that is there anything that folks would need to know or do with their contract writing system ahead of, in order to integrate with this?
So go ahead, Serge.
Yeah, it's just a standard REST APIs. So I would assume that your developer team already familiar with that. It's kind of common development patterns that we see. And it's very easy to use and consume. It's just a JSON payload. So it's very easy to read data sets that is sending in and out. And with the tool that I showed you guys, right, that app builder, smart blockchain app builder, it's very easy to define the content of your payloads, right? So we're working right now with a couple of agencies where we define a content of the smart contract. And it's just a matter of declaring those fields, mandatory fields or optional fields that you would like to fill in your application, that you would like to preserve in the blockchain.
Great, thank you.
Hello, folks, this is William. So thank you very much for the presentation. I saw where you said that your anomaly detection is really a place where you have deployed this capability. Is that the best use case that you have seen in government to point this solution towards? Is that a problem? Is that the best problem? And the reason I ask is I've always thought that government could do a much better job of doing a risk-based approach to its policies, that you take the data in an acquisition environment, you analyze the data and see what the behaviors are, and then analyze the behaviors to inform your local or even at a higher level, your acquisition policies throughout the life cycle. Is that a use case that this anomaly detection or this type of strategy could be used for?
So the way we're using this machine learning environment is it does involve a training model and training data. So if you have training data based on what users are doing under these policies, then you can train it to look for anomalies. So for example, here, for example, we're just monitoring a number of signals. And, even if they don't go up to the point where they flag a threshold, we can identify when they're headed towards that direction and things look to be going wrong.
And for example, if a procurement process, the kind of the sequence was broken at some point and approval process didn't happen in the order that it used to happen, that's could raise a flag. That's your Jarvis for your Iron Man suit.
Got it. Yeah, and I think we all realize when they're broken, it's like, where is the most optimized? Before it breaks, could you use the data to identify the most optimized solution? So thank you for that.
And yes, that's exactly what we're trying to do. Because if you look over here at this little diagram down here at the bottom where it says threshold trip, that last one is where we've actually broken that threshold.
Right.
But we've got these warning signs ahead of time, and it's using those warning signs to say, hey, this is going wrong. Don't wait till you hit the threshold.
Thank you.
That's time's up for questions. Oracle, I want to thank you for an incredible, incredible presentation. Next up on our list is the OTG group. Okay, Core CLM, very good. I will start the timer when you guys are ready to go, sir. Thank you.
We're ready to go. Thank you. Excellent. Hi, everyone. My name is Jayesh Mathur, and I represent the OTG group doing businesses Core CLM. We're here to talk about our application that we are developing ground up on artificial intelligence. It's called smartgov.ai. So with that being said, here we go. That's a much better view for you all. We're responding to the pitch challenge, which was how can emerging technologies help streamline the acquisition lifecycle? So just to contextualize what we're talking about here. A bit about our company. We are an emerging tech startup out of Seattle, and we are working on disrupting the contract lifecycle management space using native artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities. There's a brief statement on what we believe as the fundamentals of our development and deployment and client relationship. And just a philosophical statement. We do believe in accelerating the procurement processes using innovative technologies like AI and ML at scale. That's the key word. We're passionate about leveraging open source technologies where feasible. So we go out on a regular basis. We work with academic institutions like the Stanford Law School, and we also work with nonprofits like the Atticus Project. They are very actively developing and posting on GitHub and other open forums the outputs of their results. So we kind of track them and evaluate, and based on feasibility, we bring in the technology. We passionately believe in developing AI systems with human in the loop. What that means is, I haven't seen an AI capability which is completely automated. And if it is, then it's, you've all heard the use cases of autonomous self-driving cars. So you get the point. We do believe that human beings have to be in the loop to validate, to test, to revalidate, and then go from there. We're also very passionate about eliminating biases. Biases is a big problem in the world of artificial intelligence, and this is like one of the big things I have on my whiteboard here, both conscious and unconscious bias. So we are laser focused on that. And finally, we come from the commercial world. Most of our work is in the commercial world, but from a technology development platform, we bring about a domain agnostic technology development principle to our enterprise. Capability gaps, as we understand, I mean, this is the triad we see across the board in the commercial world. Most of the gaps that we kind of evaluate with our clients can be summarized into people, processes, and technology. In that order, technology is always the enabler. It should never take over. What the people are doing, technology should be cognizant about, how the people are onboarding technologies, how they respond to technologies, super important for us and for everyone that we work with. In between, you have the processes. That's the connector that connects the people and the technology. So processes, they start off by being manual workflows, and they, over time, like in the case of the federal government, they become extremely complex. Our principles always are to look at the processes and try and simplify them as much as possible, optimize them. I'm not saying that we short circuit the process. All I'm saying is, on a constant, in the spirit of continuous improvement, change the processes. Why AI? I'm not going to drain this slide, but I talked earlier about why AI to solve the issue that we are talking about, the problem statement. Like I mentioned, complex processes. The government has, federal government has extremely complex processes, and that's by design. That's the nature of your business, the multiple procurement categories, the agency needs. So your processes become complex. Good problem for the AI to solve because it can run through the processes at super high speed and resolve that. We've all heard about, harmonizing structured and unstructured data in multiple data repositories. Not a problem. AI can go in with humans in the loop, can take care of all of that. The government language is the part that I wanted to focus on. Based on experience, the government language is a very unique construct. We have the natural language, hence natural language processing. And then on top of that, we have the legal language, the legalese as we call it. And then on top of that, we have the specific business need-oriented government language. All these various transitions, the models can very quickly and efficiently scale. And finally, scalability and maintenance. We talk more about that when we come to our actual solution on its transparency, its scalability, how quickly we can deploy it. The key, while we talk about deployment, is about a phased kind of a contained, thoughtful deployment regimen. We're not talking about a big bang to rip the system out and plug in a new one, but it's got to be in the realm of change management, again, going back to people, process, and technology, take care of all those considerations and do it in a very thoughtful, regulated, governed manner. Some use cases that we've assembled based on our research, you all are familiar with these use cases. We've kind of bucketed them in three major categories: the pre-awards, the post-awards, and the closeouts. They kind of map to the federal acquisition process. So once again, they're up on the screen. I'm not saying that this is the de facto list. This is what we think are a higher priority, but we'd like the opportunity to work with the acquisition leaders that are present here and others to validate this list and to prioritize this list based on the specific needs and then go through the rest of the project. I'm going to hand this slide over to my colleague, Arshad Siddiqui. He should be on the line. Arshad, take it away.
Yeah. So what we see over here is an end-to-end architecture for leveraging AI in acquisition lifecycle. And we have taken three examples, one each from the three phases of acquisition lifecycle: pre-award, post-award, and closeout. The AI box in the middle takes as input the text, which are shown in the three boxes at the top, and taking some input from the user or the procurement team or the contracting officer outputs the relevant information based on the use case which it tackles. So let's quickly take a look at these three use cases. The first one is the applicability of a clause for pre-award phase. The use case is to automatically create the contract and solicitation documents. And in that, we have some clauses which are required when applicable, and the contracting officers have to establish their applicability. The second one in this list is the extracting of all requirements that have to be met during the contract phase. The contract document has some conditions which have to be met during the contract time, and we want to extract these conditions out to be easily accessible. And lastly, during the closeout, we have some documents in which it lists all the conditions that must be met for a successful completion of the contract. And we want to extract all of these conditions out from the large document for the contracting officers. Now, these texts are input to our AI box, which is largely made up of two ML models. The first one is used to extract important key terms from the text. Now, these important key terms are very oriented towards this acquisition lifecycle. So we want to extract out, for example, the text you see is highlighted in the three boxes. For example, the simplified acquisition threshold and invoices, and the other ones are the important text that we want to know are of use. The second model take these key terms and some input from the user or the procurement team which is the relevant information. Now, this relevant information could be in the form of a questionnaire, or it could be in the form of a document that is uploaded. And it is able to formulate some context out of the document and the provided information to answer important questions. Like, for example, if we look at the bottom are the outputs, are the final outputs. In the first case, the AI box will be able to answer, given the requirements, if a particular clause is applicable or not applicable. In the second case, it will be able to extract all the requirements that have to be fulfilled, or it can even be used to answer some important question. For example, if the procurement
time is up. Time. Are you guys hearing the alarm? It's fine. Time is up. Thank you very much for the presentation. We're going to open up the floor now, not the floor, for the judges to ask questions. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Ashad.
So I do have I'm sorry, I have a question. I'm jumping in. So is this intended to integrate with the existing acquisition solutions that we currently have, or is this supposed to replace it, the existing solutions? Over.
We can do both. I mean, the way we've designed the system is we've provided a front end with a wizard in case someone has the appetite to use that, but the original solution, which is AI ML based, can be integrated with your existing front end seamlessly, because it's essentially the data sources that they're after, and the presentation layer is the presentation layer.
Thank you.
Did I answer your question?
You did. Thanks.
Sure. Other questions?
Why don't you have your hand raised?
That must be from the past, but thank you.
Hi, this is. Sorry, I didn't want to step on Florence there. That's why I was being quiet. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so again, a similar question in terms of what Janelle was touching on. From a very sort of distilled, I know we didn't get a chance to touch on all of it, but from a very distilled description of what the proposal, what the pitch is, can you help me with that, please?
Of course. So Spot.ai, let me just quickly flip the slides and then which we didn't get to. So we believe in deploying based on a minimum viable product. The distillation is we help accelerate the contracting processes and reduce the time to market and other metrics. The way we do that, and we believe in this, is leveraging capabilities of artificial intelligence and machine learning, so that the models that we deploy are not just discrete, but they are scalable and they can self-service themselves with no impact to the end user.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Enrique, hand raiser.
So hi, thanks for the presentation. So also around that integration, so assuming that you're integrating this into an existing contract writing system, what's the end product for the contracting officer? Do they, does the system spit out a Word document with the applicable clauses, with the example for that use case? Does it, do something in the existing system that then populates it if it's a full-blown contract writing system? How do those systems interact with existing?
Of course. So with the, sorry, yes, I didn't mean to speak over you. So again, the MVP, so the final output is a document, a Word document, which can be taken. It's a draft solicitation or contract document. That's what the system spits out, and that's where the human in the loop comes. Your contracting officer can take that document where all the clauses and provisions contained in the FAR, in the MVP example, but any others across the agencies are accumulated as pertinent they are to the requirements. They can take all the documents, they don't have to go through the manual resolution. As you can see over here, our system takes 475 clauses and provisions and resolves all these numbers, leaving only 50 to be potentially in this example resolved. So it just short circuits the whole review the FAR, figure out what's applicable, what's not applicable. The AI engine does all of that and publishes that in a Word document, which can be integrated with your solicitation or contract documentation. Did that help, Enrique?
It did, thank you.
Okay. I have any other questions from the judges? We got 40 seconds. Okay, very good. All right, thank you very much. OTG, we're going to move to waste, abuse, fraud report from Summit2Sea Consulting.
Good morning, Sharks. I'd like to thank ACT-IAC for choosing our waste, abuse, and fraud reduction solution as a finalist for emerging technologies. My name's Miguel, and I'm a consultant with Summit2Sea. So I'm here to discuss our solution to how can emerging technologies help streamline the acquisition lifecycle. You see it all the time. Whistleblower receives reward for reporting aviation equipment for government contracting fraud. Government contractors, including 2 Virginia-based companies, collectively paid $2 million to settle allegations for contracting fraud. Even a helicopter manufacturer found guilty for defrauding the U.S. military ordered to pay $36 million in damages after a relationship was discovered between contracting officers and the vendor. And just a few weeks ago, the Government Accountability Office published an article stating the Department of Defense needs to enhance its fraud risk management. Summit2Sea's repeatable solution is called Zero to AI. We use your company's structured and unstructured historical data, along with machine learning, to build custom models that make predictions in your environment. Our repeatable and proven processes can start with one of our pre-built automations to accelerate time to value and help reduce cost, while also allowing us to add use cases specific to the client's requirements. Summit2Sea combines multiple technologies to not only flag potential instances of fraud, but also to communicate that information in a digestible format for users to validate and act on. Using AutoML and handcrafted ML models, our repeatable processes use the lessons we've learned from previous successful builds as a foundation that we customize to meet the needs of the current project. Business rules are generally inflexible. Machine learning allows us to not only create a working solution, but also allows the model to learn from new data. Our models can be designed so that over time, if the accuracy ever drops below a certain threshold, the model will revert to a previous state where the accuracy scores are back within tolerable levels. We use an iterative development process, incorporating user feedback into our development lifecycle, from documenting the current process to deploying the automation. We work with the client so we both can succeed. For example, working closely with our previous P2P customers, we saw a measurable increase in our accuracy scores when using NLP in the free-form fields contracting officers noted were a pain point. As a part of the Robot Factory solution, our customers can select a data visualization related automation. Summit2Sea has a team of data visualization specialists that create custom dashboards, and these custom dashboards can tie directly to the underlying data and update at regular intervals, or even when new inference data is detected. We are agnostic to BI solutions, whether it be Tableau, Power BI, or Click. We can even provide the data in Excel if the client requests it. Additionally, Summit2Sea has experience tying dashboards to DoD databases in secured environments. I'll even show you an example of that a little later. Our objective for WAFR was to build a prototype that employs machine learning for flagging potential improper procurement transactions. Say that 5 times fast. In this case, split buys, which is a specific subsection of contracting fraud. We build a repeatable working solution that can be used as a template for many use cases. In this case, we use our SageMaker model created for the Hunt project as a foundation for our WAFR prototype. With the environment being unable to support SageMaker, we use AutoML in our own environment to determine the optimal parameters and provide us with a model that regularly scored the highest. We then took that model and handcrafted it in the client's environment using the tuned parameters from AutoML. So we split the data we retrieved from the publicly available databases like USA Spending into 2 pieces, 80% for training, and the held back 20% is used for inference. Both our training and inference models contain performance metrics, ranging from SHAP analyses to determine the most impactful features to accuracy scores, recall, precision F1, and confusion matrices. So what are split buys? Some of you may be asking. Split buys are a subsection of purchase order fraud where a single large order is split into multiple POs to attract less attention or to bypass regulations that would apply for larger agreements. Our model determines if the publicly available data on databases like usaspending.gov contain potential improper split buys. We do want to emphasize that we are not trying to directly determine fraud. We are pointing out potential cases of improper split buys, which the SME, in this case, the contracting officer, will use our data and cross-reference it with the FAR and DFAR to determine if additional actions are needed. And fraud detection, by its very nature, contains classes of data that are not equally represented, or at least we hope so. Sifting through hundreds of thousands of lines to find a handful of possible positive hits. As you can see in the screenshot below, over the course of 11 days, from the 18th to the 29th, the issuing office entered into 6 separate agreements with the same vendor, all of which individually were just under the threshold of $250,000 for non-commercial goods, but looked at together far surpass it. We are now also implementing natural language processing to further define groupings using fuzzy logic on the award descriptions, so things like an extra space, an abbreviation, or a misspelling won't throw the groupings off. To retrieve the data that we were interested in, we pre-process the raw data we pull from the FPDS and USA Spending databases, apply business rules to scrub out the unwanted data, and refine the data we are looking for, which are groupings of purchase orders that total above a certain threshold. For non-commercial POs, that's 250K, and for commercial POs, that's 7.5 million. We then push that data into our various machine learning models. After the model makes determination, that data is then directly fed via a pipeline into a visualization tool. Since this was a DoD project, we use the Advanta Platform's Click tool to allow users to quickly sift through the data, apply the filters they are interested in, and export the file for further research using the FAR and DFAR. So here is an image of the first dashboard that the SMEs will see. The 2 dashboards that we created, one which was mainly a visualization dashboard, and the second which provides more of a drill down. The flag transactions fall into 3 buckets: POs with associations within 2 weeks, 1 week, and the same day. And we have graphics by command, subcommand, and even a histogram to show if there's any seasonality to the flagged POs. Our drill down tab shows not only relationships between issuing offices and vendors, but also parent companies and their subsidiaries. The bottommost table can even be exported with all the requested features available in the dataset. I wanted to show you all an extreme example of what we discovered. Each of these transactions were below the threshold, even though you can't see it in the screenshot, just kind of believe me. But within 2 days, a single issuing office entered into 12 separate purchase orders totaling over $1.8 million. And the description for each is only slightly different enough to throw off a VLOOKUP, but not different enough to throw off our model. In the end, we provided the DPC contracting officers with a small subset of the inferred data, around 300 awards, to review manually. And out of 316 lines reviewed, the SME agreed with 303 of our predicted classes, an accuracy of 96%. Summit2Sea has developed dozens of procurement-related solutions in production and have processed hundreds of thousands of transactions. We have the right people for the task, many of which hold a secret clearance and or developer certifications, and all of us are familiar with issues stemming from emerging technologies and working through development and deployment hurdles. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes back, and the last thing I want to say is, do you have any questions?
Excellent, thank you very much. Judges, I'm going to give you 6 minutes for questions on this one.
Sorry, I'm jumping in. Thank you so much for your presentation. I love this. You talked about split biases, so that's like almost as if you're analyzing the data after the transaction has occurred. I'm wondering, do you have any other applications for this, like information to inform the contracting officer before they actually make the award? Over.
Yes, absolutely. So you're right. This was a retroactive solution. However, we were also envisioning this to be a proactive solution, wherein when the contracting officers are making their final determination, they would look through a list of the last month or the last fiscal quarter's vendors and see if any of them were on the flagged list. If so, they would take that into their decision process for awarding the PO.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to add a little just quick context. Obviously, at HHS, we had a lot of interesting procurements during COVID. So thank you so much for the solution. I can definitely see some applications.
Thank you for your question.
This is Harrison. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I've been having some trouble with internet access. Can I get a thumbs up from somebody who can hear me?
You're
good. Excellent. Thank you so much. So I want to make sure that I've got two things correct here, and a little bit it goes back to Janelle's point about, you know, retroactive look, or at least indicator of offices or types of buys or firms and the like. So this is just publicly available information, right? You're essentially, gross oversimplification, you're looking at instances of identical or close to identical phrasing, the same firm or comparable firms for same NAICS code, same PSCs under certain dollar amounts, which might indicate a framing of the acquisition, if I said that correctly.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And to your point on the flexibility notwithstanding bullet, but what you were talking about in the presentation is just, or the example is just improper split buys, which, and this may sound a little unfair, but I'm just trying to make sure that I'm tracking, is not a direct correlation to some of the instances of fraud that you listed in the first slide or two. Again, I'm not arguing the point, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm tracking.
No, absolutely. I think I'm hearing a little reverb in someone's speaker. So this specific prototype was created for split buys. However, when we were working with the COs, we had identified several other use cases that can be used in conjunction with split buys. So incorporating exclusionary databases for vendors that have been suspended or debarred from federal contracts, finding patterns connected to possible bid manipulation, and even detecting unjustified sole source awards. Our methodology can be applied to all of them using WAFR as a foundation.
Great, thank you.
Lawrence, next.
Sure, I appreciate your presentation. I'm wondering more what would be the implementation cost. I'm not interested in like the breakdown, but what would an organization need to know about how to prepare to integrate and this kind of solution into their environment?
Well, working with the federal government, access is a big thing that we all battle with, right? So the first thing we would need to know is what systems we're able to get access to. And once we determine that, we can go and tell you if we need to go and build this in our environment or if we can build it directly in yours. So for this project, we found that we couldn't build AutoML in the DoD environment just because the platform wasn't ready for it. So we used AutoML in ours and then used the strongest model, which was XGBoost, in the Advana platform using Databricks.
And so based on that, the publicly available data that you scrubbed, you now house it in your system, correct?
Correct. But when we were on the Advana platform, we pulled directly from their databases that they gave us access to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, this is William Randolph, and I fully understand your comment about utilizing publicly available information. But if the information was available or made available to you internally to an organization, could this fraud detection be pivoted to, let's say, I'm going to use some layman's language, an early warning system of what's going on? Just think about the administrative cost and burden associated with doing 306 things that are similar but look different, you know, intentionally, that those could be combined. You know, there's an opportunity here. You talk about cost savings and human error savings and you know, administrative burden savings. Those were 300 and, you know, of the 303, you know, 302 of them could have been unnecessary. They could have been, if only situational awareness was known, they could have been combined, negotiated collectively, and then awarded as a much smaller number or series of actions. So could that be pivoted internally?
Absolutely. So actually at the beginning of our prototyping phase, we didn't have access to the databases, right? We didn't even know which data sources we would initially use. So the customer gave us a subset of data that we initially used to train our model. And then once we got access to the databases that they said would mirror that, that structure, we then linked our model to the database directly.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, time is up. Pitches are over. This was awesome so far. I've really been appreciating the presentations and the comments and the dialogue that's going on during breaks. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to send the judges off and go huddle, and we'll put them in a breakout room. Everybody else will stay here, and we're going to do three things. Sorry, make it three things. We're going to do our poll, okay, where the audience is going to make their selection who they thought was the best. Number two, we're going to go through COI business. So Todd Hager will get up and go through slides. And then any time that's left over, open dialogue, people can talk and chat. And then we'll get back together probably around, I would say 11:20 or so. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to send the judges away. You'll see an invite to the judges huddle breakout room. Just go ahead and go on in there. And Ty, give me a few minutes to get everybody settled, and then we'll be able to get started. Okay. Thank you.